This is the Bread Over Stones podcast, episode 7, The It That Changes Your Breakdown.
Welcome to the Bread Over Stones podcast, the show that gives grace-driven solutions to heal, unite, and inspire families. Your host is Matthew Morgan, a licensed professional clinical counselor in Ohio, a pastor, and my husband of over 20 years.
And my dad. He loves bringing families together and helping them relate better with one another.
At Bread Over Stones, you'll add to your toolbox as a parent and a spouse in order to improve the way you communicate, discipline, and ultimately show your love for your family.
So welcome to the show.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. My name is Matthew Morgan. I'm your host as always. I'd like to thank everybody who's been tuning in. It seems we've finally overcome the crazy fiasco from the last couple weeks. So we're back on track. We're grooving. We're feeling all right. And I'm okay with that. So I appreciate the feedback that I've gotten from everybody so far, and just appreciate everybody who's wanting to invest into their relationships, their time with their family, their loved ones, their roommates, their cats, their goldfish, and everything else that is helping everybody out. So, hey, for most people, it is the first week of school and nerves are flying. So I know my son went back this week. One of our big districts in our area goes back next week. So summer has pretty much cascaded to a close. We were just out at a store and things were crazy because everybody's out buying school supplies at the last minute. The only thing I think is worse was our wonderful tax-free shopping day. I don't know how many people went out for that. To be honest, we didn't do it this year because my son and I last year, I had a little bit of time off on a Friday afternoon. It's like, let's zip on down, check out the tax-free shopping, enjoy our little 5% savings that almost pays for some of the sales tax and stuff. So we're going to go take advantage of that. And it was a madhouse. And parents were really on the nerves side. They were really struggling a little bit with their kids. And the kids, of course, were all perfect angels. Not really. They're, of course, taxed because they are stressed out about going to school as well. So that was the previous year. This year, my son and I were like, no, dude, we are going well in advance. I think we went like the day before. So it was pretty cool. There's one other family there, and everything went fine with that. So, my goodness, when changes happen, nerves are flying. Everybody's stressed out. And that's the norm. That's almost to be expected to happen. But we always have to challenge ourselves at handling this a little bit better. So, and I know there's all sorts of mixed reactions. Some parents who've been dealing with their kids all summer, 24/7, are thinking they're doing the "It's the most wonderful time of the year" song as the kids are driving away on the bus. One of my favorite commercials. Love it. Sometimes it's the other way where we're having to send our kids to school and we're nervous. We're nervous about having them leave our presence. What are they going to see, feel, hear? What are they going to do while they're there? You know, who's going to permanently break our child? So all the anxious parents are going 900 miles an hour with their worries. So my son now has been at his school enough that he knows his way around. His classroom is fairly close to the door, so he was feeling chill. He was all right with going in there. He actually did not want us to go in with him this year. So that was a big change. I had taken a little time off work in the morning. My wife had taken time off of hers. And we were like, hey, we're going to walk into your classroom. And he's like, no, you don't need to do that, Mom and Dad. So he convinced us that it's close enough to the door. So we walked him up to the door and we did okay. He's doing all right. So it's a big change. So I want to talk a little bit about just that whole principle of when things start to get stressed, what happens? What happens to us? How do we react to this? How can we have good conflict? Because that stress is going to happen. We can't, and that was one of the things I talked to my son about was he was a little bit anxious about going in to his grade. And I said, well, what about last year? Were you anxious then? And he says, yeah. He says, what about the year before? Yeah. The year before that? Yeah. And so as I said, what about being born? Were you anxious for that? And he goes, no, but you and Mom were. And I said, yeah, that's a pretty good observation, buddy. So he, that's going to happen, that anxiety, that fear, that change. And we have to change. We have to go through those steps. And I know there's some moms out there like, no, we don't have to. We're just going to keep our babies with us all the time. But at some point, they're going to want to be out on their own. They're going to want to do stuff and not be our babies anymore. Oh, God help us when that happens. So how do we adjust to those changes and those stressors as they come? So I titled this "The It That Changes a Breakdown," because there's a really fine line between breakdown and break it down, and that's really kind of if you're going to take anything home today. That's just it. If we can put that it in between breakdown, things are manageable. They're a lot easier to handle. And that's what we've had to do in our house this week. And I'm sure other people have as well. So, and really what the difference is one of the psychologists that I follow uses this example. Is that as parents or as the calm one in the relationship, because sometimes this happens between spouses and family members and siblings, one person has to be the thermostat. Okay, now, and what she talks about is the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer. A thermometer just measures the temperature. It reacts to whatever's going on around it, right? We put a thermometer in our meat. Hopefully it hits somewhere around 165 degrees because that's what makes it safe. If you're like my wife, when we're cooking steak, somewhere around 180, 190 is okay. For me, it's somewhere we're going to almost hit that 165 if we have to, because that's, of course, the safe way to do it. So, but all the thermometer does is react to what's going on around it. It doesn't have that ability to change. I have a really cool digital thermometer, so I get to stick it in whatever we're cooking. And it does a great beep right when something hits the right temperature, which is fantastic for me because I have ADHD, so I tend to wander off when I'm cooking. So what this tells me is, hey, we're at the right temperature. Let's go ahead and pull that out right now. But if I don't react to it, if I don't go and do what it's told, it's just going to simply keep measuring what's going on around it. Now, a thermostat, on the other hand, changes things. The thermostat is what keeps my house at a decent temperature all year. Because if it gets too hot in the house and it's summertime, it's going to kick the air conditioning on for me and pull that back down so that we are not glistening in our house. And vice versa, in the middle of the night when during the wintertime when it gets to be 30 degrees outside or somewhere below that, then the thermostat's going to kick on the heat so that it comes back up so that we don't turn into people sickles in our house, which would not be good either. So in our relationships, we need to be the same way. We need to be that thermostat. We need to be the one who helps calm a situation down. All right? And there are 3 principles that I want to put in this. So normally an argument or an escalation at home is going to look something like somebody's getting stressed, they're having maybe an inappropriate reaction to stress, they're slamming stuff down, they're growling, they're getting angry. All of us have our keys to where our stress goes. And to give you a hint here, for most of us, it's not a verbal indicator. Most of us, as we start to stress, we're not going to say, oh dear, I'm feeling a little bit stressed right now. I would like to not be so stressed. Could somebody please help me? They say that, but with the universal translator in our heads, it usually comes out something like, or something like that. It doesn't come across the way that we want it to. So we start to have those stressors, slamming, growling, getting upset. And somebody usually has a really great word of wisdom, like they look at you and they say, hey, calm down. And I'm going to say most of the time we don't sit there and say, oh, well, I thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think I will calm down now since you told me. Usually it's like, I'll show you calm down, and then things escalate from there. So the calm down phase usually doesn't work because our verbals are taking a little bit of a vacation while we're stressed. And there's all sorts of wonderful nerdy science behind that, which I may share in future times, but I want to be cognizant of our time now. So we go from calm down into breakdown. And usually, when somebody says calm down, our reaction is to continue to break down, to get more angry, to get more upset, more frustrated. So we go from calm down to breakdown to takedown, and that's when things get ugly. That's when the fight ensues, when the two brothers will grab a tub of popcorn and sit down next to each other and watch the mass chaos explode as anger, yelling, screaming, stomping is a big one. All of the wonderful things that make up a fight start. And again, this can happen between parent and child. I have seen plenty of that this week with school starting in our house and other people's houses. Normal response to stress, right? I've seen it in spouses where one spouse is a little upset about something going on. The other one says, hey, calm down. And all of a sudden the takedown ensues and everything blows up. And currently everything that you have done for the last 25 years becomes a matter of public record for anybody in the block who is able to hear what is going on. Rarely do those situations ever have a good outcome, other than once the dust settles and the nuclear fallout has all cleared away, then sometimes we'll sit and talk and be like, hey, what happened? I don't know. And then everything just kind of falls away. Sometimes we pack things in. Sometimes that's the end of a friendship or a relationship, because we don't understand what happened. And so what I want to do is find a way to interrupt that. Okay. And so by that, we just need an it to do it. So the calm down phase suddenly becomes calm it down. Right? And instead of telling somebody calm down, I need to demonstrate that calm. This is where I need to be that thermostat. Right? If I'm telling somebody to calm down, but I'm doing it in a loud, anxious voice, they're not going to calm down. They're going to escalate more. Whether they're my child or my spouse or a friend, they're going to naturally go that way. So the first thing you have to do is be able to be calm yourself and bring that calm to the table. And sometimes it's just a matter of letting the other person work through what they're going through. Sometimes it's a matter of, hey, let's go for a walk right now. Sometimes it's just that reassurance that things are rough. Things are frustrating right now. So calm down becomes calm it down. And all of a sudden the breakdown becomes break it down. So when we break it down, we start to understand the problem a little bit more. One of the examples I'm going to bring straight from my own household. I'm pretty sure I'm going to owe my son royalties for most of his life for using him as an example. But we had homework the first day of school. And that homework was to write 3 sentences. Oh my goodness. It was not a pleasant day in the Morgan household when we tried to enforce this homework. And the reason why was that he was stressed. He was overwhelmed. It was too big of an assignment. Now, most of you say 3 sentences is not a big assignment. And I say 3 sentences is not a big assignment. And my wife says 3 sentences are not a big assignment. And my son's brain says, ah! And he's getting frustrated and he's getting angry. And so when we finally, again, calm it down, once we got it calmed down, then we had to break it down. The fact was that there was too much for him to process. He is part of the highly sensitive population that I deal with in my practice. And so there's too much there. So it was too overwhelming and his brain wasn't processing it. So what we did is we sat down and we said, hey, here are these 5 questions. Who, what, when, where, why? How about you answer those about school? Who did you see? And he was able to rattle off a sentence. What did you do? He rattled off another sentence. Right? Why did you like it? He rattled off another sentence. I'm like, look, 3 sentences right there. So by breaking the problem down, it became less threatening, less formidable to him. And when we find ourselves starting to hit that point of meltdown, one of the things we need to do is figure out, okay, what's going on? What is so overwhelming that we can't deal with it? Break the problem down. One of the wonderful men that I used to teach with, who has since passed away, he told his students decades ago a lesson and always told them this, so it always stuck with them. And Mr. Schaefer, he would say, he asked them, how do you eat an elephant burger? Or how do you, I messed it up, figures. How do you eat an elephant? And he always said, one elephant burger at a time. The fact was that when we're faced with a very large task, we have to break it down into manageable chunks. And that may not be manageable, or they may be manageable to you, but if they're not manageable to the other person, we have to break it down for them more. How do we handle those little details? Let's get down to the smallest part that we can tackle and tackle that problem. Because at that point, it quits being insurmountable and it becomes something that we can tackle. All right. And that's the last part, is the takedown part of the argument suddenly becomes take it down. And that task goes away very quickly, and we're able to finish it up and accomplish what we needed to do and not have any issues with it. So by that simple process, by putting that into our relationships, we can bring help and healing to that. And remember, we're all about bread over stones. We're about giving good gifts, giving those good things that help. All right. So we need to be the calm by calming it down. We need to help them break it down. And then together we can take it down. So if you are fighting with your spouse and you're having an argument, figure out what's going on. First of all, calm things down. What's really bothering us? What is really at the heart of the matter? Is it the fact that he left the cupboard door open for the 3,695,000th time? Or is there something else going on? Are you worried about a health result? Or are you frustrated with something else that's going on right now? And I'm not saying that's not frustrating, but let's break it down. What is the actual problem here? And maybe it is that he leaves the cabinet doors open. What can we do about it? Let's break it down. Why is it such an issue? And then you're able to take that down. So you are the it in this situation. You get to be the one who helps handle all of these problems. Now, this is the second part, and this part's the not so fun part of this. But what if you don't want to do that? What if you don't want to be the grown-up in this situation? What if you don't want to have to be calm, to help break things down, to help take things down? That one, you may need to go back to episode 6, where I said, check yourself before you wreck your family. Check out what's going on in you. Why is it that things are such a struggle right now? What are you worried about? What are you scared about? Why are you so frustrated that sometimes it's better to pick a fight? And I'm not saying it's all bad. I had I wish I could quote her in this, but she's a former client of mine, but I did tell her that I was going to steal this. And her expression was always, anger gets stuff done. She may not have said stuff, but we're trying to keep this PG just in case the kids are listening. But anger does get stuff done sometimes. Sometimes when we escalate things, we're motivated to do stuff. We're motivated to tackle these things. But sometimes it doesn't work well. Sometimes when we're angry and we act out of that anger, we hurt people with us, and we don't want to do that. So what's going on? Why are you so willing to burn a relationship? Is it that you're not feeling valued in this? Is it that you are not comfortable with your position or with some of your feelings and you're having to deal with those? those are all challenges. And sometimes the best thing you can do is to go get a little bit of therapy. I know a lot of people, and again, being in this profession, a lot of people struggle with the idea of needing a mental health counselor. They automatically go to these cases where everybody hears voices or where they're so chronically depressed. And it has that kind of connotation to it. But many times, a counselor can just simply provide that soundboard and bounce your voice back to you so that you can understand what's going on. And suddenly you become your own thermostat because you get to call yourself out. Why am I frustrated about these situations? What's going on inside me right now? Am I worried about the kids growing up? Am I getting older? Am I facing a health result that really just scares me at this point? Am I feeling angry about something? Am I feeling alone about something? Those are all feelings that they tend to circumvent what's going on. They tend to short circuit the part of our brain that says, hey, I need to calm things down because we're hurting too. And we become a little bit like that wounded animal stuck in the corner who's biting and clawing and scratching. So hopefully this provides some help for you and your family. The basic premise, again, is that we need to calm it down, break it down, and take it down. So what are you doing in your family today? And here's where I always like to leave you with a challenge. Here's where this challenge is going to be. And that is to grade yourself on how good of a thermostat you have been this week versus how much of a thermometer have you been this week. And please, again, bread over stones. We want good things to come. I'm not here to judge or to throw rocks through the camera lens for those of you watching by audio, or somehow toss it through the microphone for those of you over there. I'm not here to judge any of those things. And in fact, I don't necessarily even want to know them, but I want you to know them because I want you to rate yourself on how you've been. Have you been reacting to things out of your own hurting, angry, lonely, tiredness? Or have you been pretty good about it? Have you been pretty good about being the calm one and to be the one to bring those basic ideas into your family? Is this something that maybe a spouse or somebody else needs to know? Maybe you can pass this along to them or a friend who's struggling with some of these issues. I, of course, would love for you to share those. And the more we get the word out, the more we can do and the more we can keep tackling some of these tougher issues. So your challenge this week is simply to rate yourself last week on how you did being a thermostat versus a thermometer. And then to make a point this week to look for opportunities to make that choice. If you are with any people during the course of the day, I'm going to venture to say that you're going to have a good chance to be able to try this out. Probably you wouldn't have to drive far before somebody cuts you off and you get to decide whether or not you're going to react or whether you're going to be proactive. I'm sure that person at work will be around at some point, and you get to try to react to that. And of course, most of the people listening to this do have family that they are trying to interact with and to do better. So you've got a couple different options to go with that. You've got definitely, hopefully, a good assignment for this week. And of course, I would love for you to share this with the people that need it. And if you have questions, if you have concerns, anything you want to share or anything that you would like for me to tackle in this vein of relationship advice and how to get along with people, then just feel free to send me an email at matthew@breadoverstones.com. I will get those throughout the course of the week. I'd be happy to respond. And if you're okay with me reading this over the email or over the podcast, I may do that as well, but I'll let you know beforehand. So typically we can't give specialized advice, but I may be able to point you in the right direction just because I really want to honor the therapy relationship because I think it's important. And I think for those of us who need it, definitely worthwhile seeking that out. So Thank you for spending these 20 some odd minutes with me today and letting me into your lives to be a part of things. I would love to hear again how you think things are going. I'm here really just out of love for you and your relationships and to see them grow. So I'm going to pray that the bread of God's grace is in your lives this week, and that you're able to pass that on to other people. Have a fantastic week, and we will see you next Monday for the next episode. Take care. Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com for the music at the opening and closing of this show. The opening song was Carefree. The closing one was Cattails. They're both licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license.
This show, its host, and its guests are here to provide accurate and helpful educational information. This is not a substitute for personal counseling, and it shouldn't be taken as legal, accounting, medical, or other professional advice.
If you need a professional, you should find one in your area.
This is the Bread Over Stones podcast, episode 7. The It That Changes Your... I forget my title.